we invite you to join our Voice of College Football community over on Patreon, the Voice of College Football community there. 2 exclusive live streams each and every week. One, I respond to your viewer comments. The other one, I bring the viewers on. You, the community, I bring you on as guests, and we have a roundtable discussion on college football. We had our first Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. All right, Wholesome One. So until there's actually games played at the end of August, and then especially those ACC or division games that you allude to, starting with North Carolina on the road in Chapel Hill, are we going to know whether all the bravado has some backing to it on the field? But based on what you're seeing near the end of your last answer to my question, you talked about what you've seen from former regimes, former head coaches that have been successful at the U. Do you see that out of Manny Diaz? Are you encouraged? Obviously, again, it's gonna play itself out on the field in terms of confirmation. But right now, do you like what you see?
I like what I see, and yet again, there comes this level of excitement every time that a new coach is hired or a defensive coordinator. You know, you get your key terms like, oh, they're flying to the ball, and everyone's moving fast, and wide receivers are breaking on routes, and they're building chemistry. All these key phrases that happens when you get new coordinators and new coaches. But the biggest thing that I want people to think about moving forward is not listening to the coaches. When you listen to player interviews and you hear certain things as if it feels different. It was a nice transition. We're moving faster. A lot of our players are winning competition, and we're building competition. Do our players look extremely happy to be out in front of getting these interviews? Do they, when you ask questions about a coordinator or a coach or a position coach, do you see the look on their face, that excitement that comes out when you bring up the name Manny Diaz? You bring up the name Dan Enos and Blake Baker, to see how our players, this happiness that pours out of them because they see and feel the program is different. When Mark Richt came and you watch the interviews, it's more of a business approach because he comes from the SEC. He had his success, and a lot of people might not view Mark Richt as respect, give him a lot of respect, but I definitely do, especially for what he did for our program and what he had did at Georgia in his previous regime. But it was more of a serious CEO effect to the program, kind of tightening up some loose ends, building a foundation that now Manny Diaz can project off of, as far as adding that energy, the fiery, the happiness, wanting to go out there and be excited about competing for the University of Miami. And our players are just exuding that. So that's why I say it feels different. You go back and you listen to Coach Randy Shannon when he was there. It kind of has that same feel. Now, Randy Shannon could never really keep an offensive coordinator. The budget wasn't as good for him as far as being able to hire a big-name offensive coordinator. And when he did with Coach Whipple, who went on to the Jacksonville Jaguars 2 years later, and he still is in the NFL, you see how he was able to match Randy Shannon's defense with a top 15 offense. He had our first 9-4 season in about 5 or 6 years in 2009. Now, we come back 10 years later, we're bringing back, with Blake Baker, someone who's a Manny Diaz disciple, was with him at La Tech, was with him at Mississippi State, was a GA under him at Texas. So there's a connection there. It won't be the same because Blake Baker is more of a pass defense coach. So we get to make what we did good in 2018 even better because we're so young in that back half and we're more mature in the front seven of the defense. So we get to add that electric defense, now bringing in Dan Enos, who's tying up the loose ends and adding a jolt to the offense. So you bring all that together, and it's a lot of talk. We're going to prove it this season. All of the answers won't be at the end of the Florida game, whether that's a W or a loss. We'll have to see it all the way through a 14-game season. And yes, I'm adding ACC championship in there, and yes, I'm also adding a bowl game. So we'll see through a 14-game season how this University of Miami team is moving forward. But like I said, the biggest thing, Mark, is changing the energy and the perception of the U nationally to these recruits moving into the 2020s, because we get further and further away from 2001. 2021 is 2 years from now, and that'll be 20 years ago. We don't want it to be 30 years, 25 years before the University of Miami is nationally respected again.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please lock it in right here. If you're joining me possibly for the first time or have just selected a few videos, please dive into the library. You see us covering college football like nobody else each and every day. Best discussion, debate, and analysis provided by a number of bloggers, broadcasters, and writers. And then, of course, analysis from myself. And I am also including, of course, our guest today, the Wholesome One, Dwayne Holloway. Please join him on his YouTube channel, The Wholesome One, HOLSUM, the number one. Please go there for Miami football coverage. So, you're talking about perception nationally and as it pertains directly to the recruiting base. So, it's a long way to December to see if the commitments are going to hold. And then for a lot of these guys, they'll wait until February, but about 80%, as we've seen the last 2 years, will sign in the early signing period mid-December. Do you like what you see so far in regards to recruiting? Miami stands about 10th in the country, right around that number, 8th to 10th in the country, according to the major services.
I do enjoy it, and it's a great thing to see recruiting because it's an ever-changing thing. A kid could get a Georgia offer. A kid could get that Florida offer that they grew up rooting for that team, and they're now committed to the University of Miami. So it's our job to keep that kid. It's our job to remind them of why they committed to the U. A lot of this, it's a continuous thing every year, Mark. We get 2 years away from now, we have a top 5 recruiting class. The closer we get to that signing day, we kind of fall back down the ladder. In order to hold these guys in, because then Nick Saban comes with the Alabama offer. Dabo Swinney comes with the Clemson offer. Ohio State offers, they kind of pull a couple of our South Florida guys every now and again. And so we have to get the W's and we have to win to keep these guys. Keep them committed to the University of Miami. Of course, we talked about Don Chaney Jr. last time I was here. A program-changing back is somebody who he's cinched into the U. But a guy like Willie Moose, or guys like Jalen Francois or Jonathan Dennis, these guys who they're high 4 stars right now, but they just got that 4th star. Or Marcus Fleming from Miami North, from South Ridge, wide receiver. These guys are just getting that 4th star, so now they're getting the other offers. They're starting to branch out a little further, and now they're getting a notification from these other big time, your Oregons, your Nebraskas, your Texases are starting to try to creep into South Florida. So we have to back up this early recruiting. We win early in recruiting. It's more about winning late in recruiting. If you tell me, Wholesome, you guys have the 25th recruiting class now in June, but come February of 2020, we have a top 5 recruiting class because of the W's and because we're evaluating properly of is this guy a Miami guy and can he come here and help our program, or are we just picking a guy up for numbers? So I prefer us to win recruiting later on after backed up by a 10-plus win season, 9 or 10-plus win season. If you look over the last 15 years, the 2 times we had a 9-win season, we had a top 10 recruiting class. The 1 time we had a 10-win season, we had a top 8 recruiting class. So you win, and the young men down here, it's a direct correlation. The 2 schools down here in South Florida who are having the most success is Miami Northwestern and Miami Carol City. Why? Because they're winning. And you don't need an address to proof of address to attend high schools anymore in the state of Florida. So you can kind of go wherever you want to go. It's a whole other level of recruiting, even at a high school level. So these schools have like 4 or 5 teams, basically. You have your first stream through 4th team, and all the 4 or 5-star guys run to these local private schools because of the history and the winning. Well, if you can replicate that at the University of Miami, we'll do what Clemson was able to do and turn down a 5-star. That's when you know your program is on a whole nother level. When you say, no, we've taken enough at your position. Sorry, take camp elsewhere. That's where we want to be at the U. And you have to get those W's so that the kids down here, they want to play for a winning program.
He is the Wholesome One. Yes, Dwayne Holloway, HOLSUM, the number one. HOLSUM, the number one. Join him right here on YouTube. Of course, you've joined Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please join our exclusive community that we have, the Voice of College Football community on Patreon. Please join us right there for 2 exclusive live streams that are must see with a roundtable with you, the viewer, the community, right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, where we bring you on the live stream and talk to you directly, and also my reaction to your viewer comments. Wholesome one, we appreciate you stopping by.
Of course. Yet again, thank you all so much for having me on. And go ahead and check out my channel when you get a chance. Blessed to have another day, and you have a blessed day.